Hi, this is Annette from CHAMPS Academy. It's recently been reported that nearly a quarter of teenage girls aged around 14 are self-harming. So we know in the UK it's a huge issue and almost to crisis point where there is not enough services, or the services are having to be limited to those that are in absolute desperate need, which to me, that's a real problem in itself. But I'm here to chat with you about the other reasons why your child or teenager might self-harm. And these are perhaps aren't ones that are covered in any reports or any studies, but they're real to the young people going through it. So as always at CHAMPS Academy, we get real. We want to make sure that we're covering the real situations that are going on with teenagers and children in general, and then being able to offer practical solutions and helpful guidance. So I'm going to cover the other reasons why your child or teenager may self-harm. So the first one is that actually their friends do it and they don't want to be left out. They've seen the marks or the particular situation that their friend is going through, whether that is self-harming with an instrument, whether that's burning, whether that's self-hating or self-loathing through communication or other means. They've seen and experienced their friend or even their best friend and feel that actually maybe it's something I should be doing. So they start, and then all of a sudden it becomes a life of its own and they can't stop. So in some respects, they don't necessarily know the reason why they started self-harming, other than the fact that their friend or their best friend did it, or other people at school did it. The second one is that maybe they're part of an online game or online app that promotes self-harm. Now this is the dark side of the internet, and it's something that you don't necessarily know your child is being part of, and that's nothing to do with you as a parent. That is just the life that young people are growing up in. So there is something called blue whale, and that's been widely reported internationally about the issues of self-harm and potential suicide, and also the Momo challenge, which is a very dark, strange character that then challenges them to do lots of different things, including self-harm and potential suicide. So it's things to be aware of that are out there. I don't know how they're able to be out there, promoted, government clearance, whatever it might be, but they're out there and they're maybe getting in front of your child or teenager. This is cyberbullying 2.0, I call it, and through things like Instagram polls, there are now things that you can create polls of your own. And there are groups of girls in particular schools and community groups that are creating Instagram polls, particularly about who will self-harm first or worst. It sounds just barbaric, doesn't it? We are talking about children and young people. And I know as a parent hearing these things, it can be quite difficult to take in, and it might be quite easy to think, that's not going to be my child or teenager, they wouldn't do that. Well, it's happening, and that's part of the reason why self-harm is becoming such a big crisis, because there are other elements, not just the mind-based issues that obviously need the additional help, but also these other elements to it. It could also be part of an initiation process into a group, such as a clique, how to become into the populars, as some schools or groups call themselves, and therefore, well, if you don't self-harm, you can't be part of our group. Now, it was probably a similar for when you and I were growing up. Maybe you were offered a ciggy behind the bike shed, something like that, and you know, if you didn't take it, then who were you? But it's gone much deeper and much darker than that, and these are the things that are happening. Your teenager doesn't necessarily have the tools and strategies to help them through whatever they're feeling. There is a huge amount more stress, pressure, information, distraction that allows our mind to quickly become overwhelmed and full to breaking point. So if they don't have the right tools, techniques, strategies to become more resourceful, to maybe see things as they really are, and also I class it as being intelligently curious. So they begin to question what they see on social media. They begin to question whether someone is having such a great time on social media and they've got a great body and a perfect life. I teach kids how to intelligently question those types of things that they see, so they begin to see the real situation and picture rather than what is placed in front of them. Often I've referred to it as fake book, because now you can Photoshop, you can share anything that you like on a social media platform that isn't necessarily real life. So it's what you want that other person or people to see, and that's what's happening with young people as well. And lastly, the AAA effect. I've spoken about this widely on radio and TV, that many young people feel they're not getting enough attention, acceptance, or approval. And this can be associated to both on and offline. And so what they do is something a bit more drastic. They want to get attention, so they maybe self-harm, or they create some kind of eating disorder, or they create a unhelpful or unhealthy habit, whether that's drink, drugs, smoking, other things. But then it becomes a vicious cycle. So they start off getting that attention, and then it begins to have a life of its own, because they get attention for doing that action, and therefore if they don't continue doing that action, they won't get attention, approval, or acceptance. So they have to keep doing it, and maybe they have to do it to more drastic measures as well. It's something they then can't escape from. So there are many other reasons to why your child or teenager may self-harm. So here's what you can do to help. Firstly, chat openly about emotions. Provide reassurance that actually it's okay. We're emotional beings. We're packed up with emotions, and we shouldn't hide our emotions, and we shouldn't pretend they're not there. It's okay to feel anything. We just want to make sure that we're not being controlled by it. So being able to express emotions is absolutely fine, and the reassurance that that's okay, and be open about it yourself, even if perhaps you're a little bit more reserved. Times are changing, and we have to evolve to be able to support our young people. Now, often as a teenager, we've all been there. Speaking to your parents about anything is awkward. It's cringeworthy. It's like you'd want to do anything but talk about personal things sometimes to your parents, and your teenager is no different. So rather than creating that awkwardness and actually not allowing them to open up in the best way possible, in the way that they need, then here's another strategy. Somewhere in your home, whether it's the kitchen or the hall or somewhere where it's used a lot, have a worry box and a happiness jar. Now, this for a teenager might seem a little bit childish perhaps, but I've used it to great effect for many young people, including young adults and older adults too. When we have lots going around in our mind, they go round and they get bigger, scarier, or worse than they really are. So getting our worries, our feelings, our emotions down on paper or out of our head can be the first step to actually being able to manage them much better, rather than getting overwhelmed by them. So if your teenager finds it really difficult to talk, or you've just got that kind of awkward relationship at that time of life, then they can write a worry, an anxiety, or something that's bothering them on a piece of paper. I always have sticky notes near me, and then place it in the worry box. And then you, your partner, family member, a trusted adult is then able to pick them out, read them, and it begins to open up that conversation without that initial awkwardness. But also, we don't want to just concentrate on worries. We want to be able to replace them with something that is fun, that makes us feel much better about ourselves, and that's the reason for the happiness jar. So on a regular basis, post in, and again using sticky notes or bits of paper, funny things that you've done as a family, positive quotes, positive affirmations, positive statements, whatever it might be. So when your teenager has posted a worry or something in the box, then they take something out the jar, read it out, and feel much better. These are initial steps to changing how they begin to think. So we're shifting the mindset from very negative and dark and down on themselves, almost self-loathing and self-hating, they're never good enough or pretty enough or whatever it might be. We're starting to shift the mindset. Now, the power of the mind is so incredible, but we often use it against us rather than for us. So we want to make sure that your child or teenager is equipped with some simple reminders of what makes them feel good, happier, or just relaxed. So it could be a family holiday, it could be things they watch like cat videos, it could be something your animal does if you have a cat or dog or anything else. Very simple things, because as soon as we imagine that thing, our mind transports us back into that great feeling. So we almost feel lighter, we feel more relaxed, and we feel happier. So that's the first stage of shifting the mindset from worry to something more positive. And then lastly, help them to recognize the triggers, whether that's a stress trigger, an anxiety trigger, an emotional trigger in one way or another. Now, I'm going to teach you a little exercise, so please share it with them too. All I want you to do is get your thumb and forefinger on one of your hands and just place it into the fleshy part of the other hand. All you're going to do is lightly press and lightly massage. You can probably just see my hand doing that. Now, one of the things about self-harm is the fact it keeps them very focused on one thing. So in an ironic kind of way, it's a bit kind of mindfulness-y, if you like, because it gives them one focus away from the distractions of overwhelm and hate and all those other dark thoughts. So we want to shift their direction to take away the trigger or the urge to self-harm. And this will be one way to be able to do it. So they focus in on pressing and massaging into their hand, which also helps to relax. If you've had any kind of massage, you know that instantly touch, even on your own body, makes a huge difference to how you feel. And then we're just going to focus on a saying, and this saying will change depending on what they are feeling or their emotion or their trigger. So for example, it's, although I feel whatever it is, I will be kind to myself. And it's in a very single tense and in a very momentary tense. So although I feel anxious, I will be kind to myself. Although I feel hate, I will be kind to myself. Although I hate myself, I will be kind to myself. So again, we're shifting the thought process from negative, dark, and self-loathing to something more positive by focusing our attention simply on doing something and also replacing in our mind a more positive way to think. So I hope you have found this useful. If you know other parents that are going through a similar thing with their child or teenager, please like, share, and comment on this. Tell me what else I can help with. Self-harm is a real thing and it's growing in its crises. So we have to understand what young people are experiencing and, more importantly, how we can help. CHAMPS Academy is here to help, and we have a mission to empower and inspire 1 million children and teens by 2020. And that includes helping them with mental issues, mind-based challenges, and to become much more resourceful and happier about life. That is my personal mission. So if you feel that you have been inspired and you want to make a difference to young people's lives, then we also need more coaches to be able to meet demand. Get in touch about becoming a CHAMPS Academy coach through the CHAMPS Academy franchise.